Hey guys, so the new season of The Boys just aired its final episode, and I thought that sitting here just a couple hours after watching it, I would talk about it, seeing it's one of my favorite shows out right now. I think it's just a really fun show to dissect anyway. That, and while the show is more popular than ever, it's also never been more divisive than ever and should make for a pretty spicy video indeed. Or at the very least, it'll be entertaining and interesting for you guys. Hopefully. So let's not dilly-dally. Let's not pad the runtime with an extended intro, because those are for pussy. Let me just read out what my sponsor told me to read. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Also, this should go without saying, but I will be discussing spoilers. All the spoilers. Anything that can be spoiled will be spoiled. If you have not seen the finale of the season yet, then don't watch this video, or go watch the finale and then come back here. Please come back. So The Boys is, first and foremost, one of my favorite shows of the last few years. It's fun, it's campy, it's violent, it's hilarious, it's got amazing characters, it's got a scene where a regenerative superhero ninja beats the shit out of a bunch of guys with plastic dildos. Yep, and even with stuff like that, the show never gets to the point where the obscene violence and vulgar language becomes old hat or tiresome. The writers of the show are so good at injecting the right amount of humor into some of the most violent and insane scenes I've ever seen in any piece of entertainment. Sometimes the stuff that happens is played off as just a joke, and occasionally the violence is supposed to feel weighty and dramatic. However, what the show is trying to say thematically is something that has kind of been controversial since it first dropped in 2019. On the surface, while this thing could be considered a superhero action comedy show, at its core, it's also a satire of many different things in this world. The show pokes fun at corporations, celebrity idolization, politics, and even the media of superheroes in general. You see, the original creator of the Boys comic series that the show obviously pulls material from, Garth Ennis, famously hates superheroes. His belief was that superheroes had dumbed down the creativity and maturity level of comic books for years and had given them a reputation as a niche entertainment that's really only for childish nerds. So he wrote a comic book series that took the classic superheroes like Superman and Wonder Woman, The Flash, etc., and turned them into absolute lunatics who will do literally anything and everything for their own image. They are used to sell products, role models, or even help with the military. And yeah, sure, they may save people, but they don't do it out of respect or love for the human race. They do it for themselves, to profit themselves as the good guys. Who knew that in the ensuing years the comic was created, the superhero craze would take over, and the only thing making $1 billion in the box office was a movie where some of the most famous Marvel superheroes fight against some big CGI villains in a 2.5-hour long extravaganza that cost the monetary equivalent of like 20 indie movies to make. The point I'm trying to make here is that the superhero market had become a bit oversaturated, and the show was a nice breath of fresh air that made fun of Marvel tropes in a clever and fun way. In this show, it's not the action or the spectacle that makes it fun and engaging, it's the writing. And might I say, this show has some of my favorite characters in television today. Butcher, Huey, Frenchie, Kimiko, A-Train, The Deep, Maeve, Starlight, and later characters like Soldier Boy, Stan Edgar, Victoria Newman are all given so much to work with and have clear-cut, engaging character arcs that make their inclusion in the story very fun. But out of all these characters, nobody quite steals the spotlight like Homelander. Homelander is honestly like top 3 best villains in television history. And I think the main reason that is because of how his egotistical, psychopathic personality is so perfectly crafted. The concept of an evil Superman has been played with for years and years and years. But what separates this Homelander from even the Homelander in the comics is that there's so much specificity to his character. Instead of simply being a guy who does evil, terrible things because, he's evil and wants power, Homelander is a case of bad product. Homelander was scientifically engineered to be a corporate piece of property used to bolster their reputation of suits everywhere, to be essentially Vought's golden boy. But being raised in this sterile environment, being tested as a lab rat, has only taught him that pure, unadulterated physical power is the only thing important in the world, and more importantly, to be praised for it. Homelander doesn't do these terrible things because he got hoodwinked into going crazy like in the comic. He kills people in the worst ways possible out of his own volition because he feels that the human race is beneath him, that they are his subjects, and the idea that it's his obligation to save people isn't really true to him. He saves people to give his own public image a boost because, unlike his father, he needs that sense of approval, that endless affection for just him existing at all. What makes Homelander so horrifying but at times hilarious to watch is the fact that even when he does these terrible things, there's no remorse, there's no guilt, there is no opposition to him, and the only thing that can break him down is his own nature. Part of what makes watching the show so amazing is just watching him battle his own insecurities in his own head. Each season dives deeper into what makes him tick and what makes him who he is and why he is the way he is. And the performance of Anthony Starr is just absolutely mesmerizing as he pulls off being equal parts weird, funny, horrifying, and exhilarating at the same time. And that's just Homelander. There are other good characters that I won't go into all of them because I don't want to make this video 5 hours long. So what's with this new season? Why is it so divisive? And isn't it any good? Well, honestly, I think the reason why it's so divisive is a lot of things. But the first reason I think is season 3. Because in my opinion, after this season, I still believe it, is that the third season of this show is probably my favorite. The plot device of temporary Compound V being given to the boys opened the door for so many wacky, insane possibilities. Instead of just being some dumb gimmick to get people to watch the show because, oh my god, everyone has powers now, the Compound V gives the characters new arcs to explore and or brings out their worst qualities. Huey becomes power hungry and lusts to feel like he's accomplished something after being powerless and helpless for most of seasons 1 and 2. Butcher sees the Compound V as a way of leveling the playing field, but is now being a hypocrite as he basically became the very thing he's hated since Homelander raped his wife. It terrorizes his relationship with his son, and his actions in season 3 lead to some terrible repercussions for the people in his life, as well as his own health, which is something that's explored further in this season. The chaos and pressure around Annie encourages her to take a stand and fight against the corruption of Vought and ditch the persona altogether. Soldier Boy is an amazing addition to the show that explores someone who quite literally only sees value and power in those who wield it. And zapping it from the 50s and 60s to the present day leads to some of the funniest scenes in the show.
Do men really walk around like that?
Yeah, I mean, dads do.
Okay, well, Bill Cosby is America's dad, and I'll tell you one thing, he wouldn't be caught dead in that pussy gear.
Lot to unpack there.
Cos, that's a real man. Holy shit, did he make some strong drinks. Holy fucking shit.
Soldier Boy being in the show as well also gave Homelander stuff to work with, as we see him lose his mind as the support from the people around him is called into question, and he starts to voice his own true opinions to the people around him, leading to radicalized groups supporting him and revealing his true fans. This even mirrors lots of events that happen in our real world. Season 3 moved like a freight train, with a lot of characters splitting off into their own groups, on their own quests to achieve their own various goals, and every character is getting something interesting to do. And although a lot of people disagree, I thought the finale was great and finished off the arcs for a lot of characters perfectly for that season's story. Also, Herogasm. The episode alone made the season great. And it's important to mention this because I think the fast-paced and overall just insanity of the last season is leading to people to believe that this season is mid, this season is boring, or even that the season sucks. Some people are complaining that the season goes quote-unquote too far in some places, namely the satire and the violence slash grotesqueness. Is that a word? I saw people on IMDb complain about the second episode because of that one scene that has to do with Pink Eye. I'm not going to describe it because I don't want to get banned off the site, but yeah, that scene. People thought that went too far, but the show has had just as, if not worse, stuff in terms of violence, and even violence of a sexual nature. The first scene in the last season was just as worse, if not worse. Hell, there are scenes in season 1 and 2 that are worse. This is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Now, the complaint about the political satire, honestly, I think is a little valid. I think the show has slowly leaned further and further into showing off its political leanings. I'm not really going to comment on what they're trying to say or imply, because I don't want to discuss politics on a YouTube video. That's just not my thing. But I will say that, I mean, the show has kind of always made fun of certain political or religious beliefs or agendas. It's just that now they're clearly taking a side. This is probably because of the election happening in November, and hell, much of the plot of this season revolves around the election in the show. So yeah, the show has never really been subtle with its messaging, and that's kind of one of the things I do wish the show had dialed back on, even season 1. But I think that the real life election happening this year has kind of made people pay attention more to the show's political satire. Either way, I get why this stuff would bother you, but for me, I just don't really care. Look, if you care as much about having a political ideology shoved down your throat, then I can't really help you. But kind of like the violence complaint, all I would say to you is, how'd you make it this far? Because the show has been doing this kind of stuff since day one. Once again, I get it. It's a fair criticism. It's just that I'm not really affected by what the show is trying to present to me. I'm just here because, the show is fun, and the way it makes fun of real world events and people is quite funny to me at points, even if it's at the expense of some sort of political belief that I align with. Okay, now let's talk about the meat and potatoes of this season, the writing. Now, first and foremost, The Boys has never really been a show that is known for an exceptional plot. This isn't The Godfather or Seven or even Inception. A lot of the plot threads or devices that are used to push the story forward are reused several times. And it's not like the show has a bad plot or anything, even in this season. It's just not one of the distinct strengths the show has, and it's mostly there in service of putting the characters in interesting situations. With that being said, though, in a similar fashion to Season 2, this season kind of struggled with pacing at multiple points, mainly in the first few episodes. This is a complaint that I've been constantly seeing the last couple of months, and while I do think people are over-exaggerating a little bit, I have to say that I do sympathize with this. It does feel like the first few episodes are much less plot-focused and more character-focused. A lot of what happens in these episodes is laying the groundwork for what we can expect to see as the season progresses. Butcher's internal struggle with his violent versus familial side of himself, Kimiko and Frenchie eventually getting together, and Starlight's downward spiral, and Homelander's development as well as his conquest are all explored here. And while I do get the complaints and can see why people were kind of annoyed with how slow it is at points, at least for The Boys' normal pacing, I was still really enjoying it. These episodes are not filler at the end of the day. People who online who are complaining that this shit is filler, you're smoking crap. You can't just ignore the plot and character writing happening before your eyes and claim that nothing is happening. If you want to see true filler, just watch a shonen. But yeah, having said that, these episodes weren't as bombastic or propulsive as the opening of Season 3, but I do like that after such a monumental and crazy finale, we're seeing the characters experience the fallout of their actions. I like the new characters they had, like Firecracker and Sister Sage. The scenes at TruthCon convention were just off the walls insanity, and the ice skating scene where Huey was crawling through the air duct was pretty awesome. But I have to admit that this season really didn't quite shine so bright until the 4th episode, which was just fantastic. And it was mostly so great because the plot and the character elements were tied together so neatly, like with Starlight's public beatdown at Firecracker effectively ending the campaign to get souped out of the higher ranking military positions, and with Butcher realizing that there was an even stranger side effect to his stint with 10V. But obviously the best part of the episode was everything with Homelander, as he goes on some soul searching to find out what makes him the way he is socially and why he is so obsessed with approval. Why he has these human-like traits, something that drives his god complex mad. We get to see just how traumatizing and horrible his upbringing truly was, and that his personality was, yes, shaped by Vought, but at the end of the day, he allowed himself to become this way. He is the way he is, mostly due to his own volition. Man, this episode had easily some of the most dark and horrifying moments in the entire show, but it never betrays a tone, mostly because Anthony Starr is just embodies the comedic quirks and psychopathic tendencies of this amazing character so perfectly. Episode 5 as well was pretty great. I'm not totally sure if I want the final season to revolve completely around using this soup virus thing to kill Homelander, because I feel like it might become pretty predictable, but I do think it does lead to some great character beats, mostly involving Butcher. It is also a bit weird knowing that basically the whole reason the Gen V show was created was to basically provide one of the biggest plot devices to the new Boys season, but for what it is, at the end of the day, it is incorporated pretty well. Anyway, this episode was pretty great, especially with Stan Edgar coming back and the Boys and Newman being forced to work together. I do kind of wish the dynamic between Stan Edgar and the Boys was given a bit more screen time, but I'll take what I can get. The stuff with Huey's mom, while kind of out of nowhere, did really let Huey's character shine, as he kind of realizes how much of a shitty person he was in Season 3, and by the end of the season, he's super against the idea of using violence to get what he wants. His arc was honestly pretty well handled this season. Yeah, at times it felt like he was a bit disconnected from the main Homelander assassination plot stuff, but it was a nice detour. There was flying killer sheep, Samir's stake in the plot is introduced, and it ends with the reveal that Butcher is going to hold Samir hostage to make a soup virus strong enough to kill Homelander. And the following episode, while not quite as strong and a bit much at times, was absolutely hilarious and super entertaining, and more Tech Night, which is great to see.
The Vernon family started out as slave catchers.
This is one of those episodes where the boys are just doing some espionage stuff, and as one of these episodes, it was probably one of the better ones. I love the scenes with A-Train where he's just like so done with everything, and you really feel for him in this season, honestly, and his desire to actually be a hero for once. It's a great way to show just how far his character has gone. I really like in general just how much the dynamic between Huey and A-Train has shifted over the course of the show. Their relationship is something I think will be put more in the spotlight next season when A-Train inevitably sacrifices himself to save Huey, because it will happen, and it's just so clear at this point. I am definitely not the one who's seen this, probably. It will happen, but I feel like it will. Watching Huey participate in some weird BDSM sex dungeon activities was fun, but those scenes did kind of cross the line, not in terms of vulgarity, but by a certain point, the joke behind it sort of got old, honestly. But the big thing this episode was the reveal that Kessler was in Butcher's head the entire time, which, yeah, was pretty predictable, and I'm honestly embarrassed. It took me till like episode 4 to even put that together. And I've seen Fight Club and Mr. Robot, so yeah. This twist about a character being influenced by another character is actually inside their head is done too much, yeah, but the writers are doing something interesting with it, and it's teased in a way that's satisfying. I can somewhat give it a pass. In Mr. Robot, that's definitely the case. I think I would say it's the case here too, especially because it has a great payoff at the end of the season that makes sense from Butcher's character. So yeah, despite some issues, this was still a pretty good episode. Then we get to the final 2 episodes, which focus heavily on attempting to thwart the presidential assassination, and in doing so, stop Homelander's insane plan before it comes to fruition, using the suit virus or Ryan. And despite some small issues I had with plot conveniences and other contrived themes, for the most part, especially for the finale in particular, I thought it was so well done, mostly from a character writing perspective. The introduction of the shifter soup was a welcome addition to the show, even if once again a bias snatcher plot isn't exactly original, but I wouldn't put it past a show like The Boys, to be honest. And I really like that Starlight is the one who gets her persona stolen. It's the perfect progression for a character that really entrenches her in her lowest point yet, especially after how antagonistic and frustrated her character has been this season. She's forced to face all of her insecurities about herself and the mistakes she's made along the way, and realize that she's not the beaming role model that she always wanted to be. She has a dark side, but she learns to accept that part of herself. I think Aaron Moriarty really shined in this finale. I just love watching actors portray 2 different personalities. It's just really fun. One thing I don't love a whole lot is the fact that she gets so pissed at Huey when she finds out that the imposter proposed to him and fucked him. Like, really? Come on. I get he maybe could have figured it out earlier, but it's not like his fault. And then like after 10 minutes, they like smooth it over right away after he makes his big speech about forgiveness. And like, really? What was the point of that? The action scenes at the boys' headquarters with Noir and Deep was super fun and easily the best set piece of the season. And More of the Deep is just so great because, God, everything with him this season was just so funny.
Me Too's over, sweetheart. It didn't work. Wah, wah, wah.
Another great aspect of these final episodes was the stuff with Ryan, and I think focusing on him more this season really panned out well. It even sets up a great conflict for him next season as it becomes more and more impossible to keep twirling back and forth between whether he wants to be with Butcher or Homelander. In fact, the scene with Mallory, Butcher, and Ryan was super dark and really effective, and I'm glad that it feels like he's ready to make decisions more independently, in contrast to how easily manipulated he was since, he was a lot younger. Kimiko and Frenchie getting together was sweet and definitely a moment for the fans, and Butcher, wow. Butcher made an impact in this finale, embracing that darker side of himself so tragically as now it feels almost out of desperation. He feels like there's no other option left. Getting Ryan on his side failed, and now with the virus in hand, his newfound powers fully unleashed, and Newman dead, I am very interested to see where his character goes. And that goes double for Homelander. The scene where he speaks before the press conference was so sinister just because he really feels like Homelander is holding all the cards once again, and he truly feels more untouchable than ever. And with his mommy milkers back as well, it truly feels like season 1 Homelander, but with less insecurity, more clarity, and more unpredictability. One more knock I have against the finale, though, is with Sister Sage, who just kind of walks in and is like, oh yeah, that was the plan all along, or like, oh well, it worked out anyway. Like, it just felt a bit, okay, well, that was kind of convenient. That was all according to plan. What statistic said that all this would happen? It's like Joker's plan in The Dark Knight, or Palpatine's plan in the prequels. It just felt kind of lazy. I get it's her power, but I'd rather the character's powers not be used as a crutch for the plot, It didn't derail the episode or anything, though, thankfully. Last thing I want to talk about is the last few minutes of the season, where basically everything goes to shit. Everything sucks, The hero's lost, the villain's the upper hand, everything is so dire. I love this shit, man. I love seeing characters suffer, you know? Yeah, I'm pretty fucked up. And set this montage of anguish to Nirvana's heart-shaped box, and yeah, this was pretty much the perfect way to end the season, and it might be my favorite finale of the show thus far. I am dying to see what happens next season, and I'm devastated I had to probably wait 2 years to see. That's a shame every show takes so long to produce new seasons these days. It'll be tough to stick the landing, but I'm hopeful. There are so many great possibilities. Yeah, so overall, I thought the season was great. Now I thought it's hiccups, and as I said, I do overall like season 3 more, but I was really impressed with how well the season wrapped everything up while still leaving plenty of threads open to be explored later. I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. So yeah, great season, and y'all can fight me in the comments if you disagree with me. In fact, please do, because I love reading y'all's comments, whether you love everything I said or want me to die. Leave a like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you will never miss any videos. Next show I talk about will probably be the new House of the Dragon season, and maybe the Deadpool Wolverine movie if I feel like it. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out. Also, Homelander's gonna lose his powers in the finale. I'm calling it. See ya.